In terms of the claimed attack by the IRGC, Jennifer, it's terribly unlikely that the U.S. would deny a warship getting hit by missiles if it actually happened, right? So we can pretty much count that out.
I think that's right. I would take that denial seriously. There have been other reports this morning that Iran may have hit a UAE vessel as well as a South Korean, and certainly those seem to be more likely.
What do you think about, I mean, in the beginning of this war, putting aside any thoughts you have on whether or not it was the right thing to start it, we hit hard central Iran. We hit hard leadership targets. We hit hard military targets, including intercontinental ballistic missiles. But we did not hit coastal missile defenses. Was that a strategic mistake?
So, I mean, one of the challenges of the Strait of Hormuz is, it's a 100-mile corridor, and that's just the strait itself. And so being able to take out all of the capabilities that Iran has through that waterway would be extraordinarily difficult. And I think we're seeing that this morning with the U.S. asserting that it is taking back control and opening the strait to additional traffic. So certainly, the United States could focus on continuing to degrade Iran's capabilities in that space. But as we've seen with their naval capabilities, Air Force and other, it's not so easy to eliminate them. And with the strait in particular, all you have to do is disrupt. You don't have to stop traffic. You just have to make people think twice about transiting. So does that mean you don't think there's a military solution to opening up the Strait of Hormuz? Because President Trump has, in his new push for what he calls Operation Freedom, said he's going to be somehow, or the U.S. is going to somehow be guiding ships safely through the strait. Is that going to be terribly difficult? That is terribly difficult, and I would posit that it is essentially impossible for the reason I just said. There may be success in getting some ships through there, and we've heard reports that 2 American flagged did in fact make it through safely. But that's 2 out of the some 100 plus that would normally transit pre this conflict. And so all again you have to do is introduce into the conversation the potential for violence, for attacks against the UAE and South Korea vessels like we potentially have seen this morning, for insurance rates to make it essentially very difficult to resume global commerce on the scale that needs to happen.
So the president says he won't lift the blockade and likely won't agree to any diplomatic truce until the nuclear question is answered, at the same time as saying that we have already obliterated all of Iran's nuclear capability. So a little bit of a discrepancy there. But what's the answer? Will Iran give up what it believes is its right to enrich uranium? Because the New York Times reported last week that they still have 11 tons of uranium.
Yeah. So a couple of things on this. First of all, Iran's nuclear program is an existential question for the Iranian regime. Secondly, the regime itself believes that it is negotiating from a position of strength at the moment. And so it doesn't believe that it has to make the kinds of concessions that we continue to see President Trump demanding. To the overarching question, I think it remains as clear today as it did some 60 days ago that there is not a military solution to this conflict. Both sides can continue to inflict damage, but at the end of the day, a diplomatic off-ramp for both sides has to be found. And at the moment, both sides are negotiating from a very maximalist position. There is room there. There are creative solutions that would acknowledge that for Iran, they are likely not going to give up their nuclear program in the way that we want, but that limit it in a way that makes it, meaningfully very difficult for them, impossible for them to actually weaponize the technology that they've amassed. And so I think finding that very creative formula is what both sides seem to be actually working towards at the moment with continued exchanges of proposals.